Okay, so this is somewhat infuriating, and I would urge you all to share this video even before I've started filming it, to share it with as many people as possible, because everybody needs to know about this before it's too late for me to actually talk about it. Now, this relates to this chap here and his conviction. He now stands convicted of having assaulted our police officers. Now, this may not have been the case. It may not have been possible if the CCTV footage was not available. Because everybody, well, I say everybody, the footage went viral when the police officer was seen to be attacking this guy when he was on the floor. And as it turns out, he'd been subdued after attacking the police officers. But that footage went viral, and obviously everybody turned against the police officers, including Lucy Powell, who made this video and posted it on her X profile, a statement in Parliament, which she later deleted, by the way. But what infuriates me is that an unnamed officer, in unknown circumstances and unknown details, is apparently now under investigation, under criminal investigation, for allegedly sharing that CCTV footage of that incident so everybody saw what actually happened following the initial viral clip that went out. Now, I'm going to go through this article and what might be the case regarding a general defense from someone who may be accused of something like that in that nature, of sharing footage and so on. So please do stay for that, but please do subscribe to this channel if you do want to hear these brutally honest updates as an alternative to the mainstream media to explain to you what I really think is going on here. I really appreciate that. Now, let's get into the detail here. So this officer, not only are the IOPC, the Independent Office for Police Conduct, looking into it, and they may have their own thing to say about it, but apparently, according to the BBC, an officer is now under criminal investigation for allegedly sharing this CCTV footage. Now, what I say in this video is not intended in any way to sway any kind of course of justice here, and in fact, it wouldn't do so because the proceedings are not yet live, and they are taken to be live under the Contempt of Court Act. Further down here, where there's been an arrest, if I search for it, it's probably easier. The initial steps of a criminal proceeding are when there's an arrest, there's an issue of a warrant for arrest, or a summons to appear, or an indictment, or something else of that nature. So when something's being issued, the proceedings are live, and then I may not be able to talk about it very much until it's concluded. But now I can. But I'll still do so generally, and I still don't intend to sway anybody, but enough caveats. You know the score by now. Let's go back to this article. So this says that he had allegedly shared this footage without any proper policing purpose, as it says here, and that there may be an accusation that he's accused of misconduct in public office and perverting the course of justice. Now, this strikes me as similarity to another case a long time ago where there was a GCHQ agent, translator called Catherine Gunn, who had shared a memo, apparently had shared a memo revealing US requests to bug United Nations delegates before the Iraq War. I think the prosecution eventually dropped the charges before the trial. They offered no evidence, and that was probably due to fears that the public interest defense would kick into play, that the general public would really want to know the legalities of what was going on and what was in that memo, what really happened, and therefore there might be a public interest defense there. And so, generally speaking, I think similar things would apply here. Now, first of all, if they were to look at an officer, generally speaking, for leaking footage that they shouldn't leak, now, we can all probably agree that in their ordinary course of duty, they shouldn't probably leak stuff that they're not allowed to leak, etc. But if it becomes clear on the back of a viral video that everybody believes one thing, it then may well be justified for an officer to correct public opinion and then, of course, to allow justice to take its natural course. And that is precisely the point here, because if someone is accused of perverting the course of justice, then they would typically be trying to do something to prevent justice from being done. Now, let's take a look at what this is. I'm going to borrow Cartwright King's website here. I'll link below for credit, but we are generally talking about these kind of things. To use them as jumping off points, we're normally talking about interfering with witnesses, concealing evidence, false allegations. False driver details is a big one. For example, if you get flashed on a speed camera and you give your spouse's or partner's details instead of yours, then you are twisting and perverting the course of justice, because it's supposed to be you, the driver, who is punished for, let's say, exceeding the speed limit, or being accused of exceeding the speed limit if you want to go to court and have your day in court. But if you give the wrong details, that is one of the reasons some people find themselves in the Crown Court for perverting the course of justice, because this is an indictable-only offence and it carries the maximum of life imprisonment. So being accused of such thing is relatively serious, but they need to show in such a case that they have the intent to pervert the course of justice. And by way of illustration, turning to the practitioner's text here, this is Blackstone's 14.39 for law students. Perverting the course of justice requires a positive act, coupled with an ulterior intent, namely an intent that the course of justice will be perverted. This intent cannot be established by mere incompetence, muddle, and the defendant's failure to appreciate the significance of what had been done. And so generally speaking, still not talking about the specific case because there's no need to, but generally speaking, if one were to leak CCTV footage so that the public have the full picture of what really happened, or to really correct a false impression, much like you would do in a defamation case, whereby you can say something more than you perhaps could initially to correct a public impression where somebody has said something wrong, then that surely is a good thing. And so, generally speaking, I would think the public would appreciate having the full picture, and this very generally is not something we should be attacking police for. If in the circumstances the person in the video has been convicted of an offence subsequent to the leak of said footage. And speaking of stories that are infuriating, we now have more headlines about government agencies that state that there's an internship that is being branded racist, that's banning white Britons from applying. I'll take a look at the legality of that in just a moment. Don't go away. On an entirely different topic just for a moment, you know that I'm a guy that likes things to just work. And I've had my fair share of stories on here where that really hasn't been the case. For example, I've had two smartwatches of the same make and model side by side giving me completely different readings, showing that it didn't work. A fridge that didn't chill the water, and they tried to tell me that that was normal. A business broadband package that went down for 12 days without telling me in advance. And my favourite cock-up of them all is my old mobile phone provider, who told me that they needed a code from my son's phone whilst he was abroad to activate roaming, and couldn't grasp the concept that that simply wouldn't work because he was already abroad, and they told me in advance that roaming wouldn't be a problem. And despite their assurances, it just didn't work. But that is when I found Saley, which is one of the partners to my channel here and provides seamless internet access. So at least one of those problems was resolved, because the next time we went abroad, it was perfectly fine. And when we went to China, it was perfectly fine. It just worked seamlessly. Saley is an app that you download. You can do it in advance, and you can get a data package for many hundreds of countries of destination. And you can activate by an eSIM without having any bit of plastic arrive in the post. And you just buy a SIM and it will activate when you arrive, and you've got seamless access to the internet upon arrival. You can buy packages for regions, you can buy packages for certain locations, or you can just buy a package as and when you need it. And of course, you get a discount, because if you use my code BlackBeltBarrister, you will get 15% off any plan you choose to buy. And because it's brought to you by NordVPN, it comes along with an ad blocker, a virtual location, and of course, web protection. Of course, you don't need to buy anything straight away. Just download it today so that when you are traveling and you get stuck, inevitably, because these phone providers just generally don't do what they say, Saley will be there to help you. It will activate instantly on arrival and give you access to the internet, so you can let your loved ones know that you've arrived safely and stay in touch. So don't forget the code BlackBeltBarrister for 15% off at the checkout, and thank you to Saley for sponsoring this video. Okay, so back to this allegedly racist internship by our security services, offering a scheme for the third time which is exclusively to ethnic minorities and disadvantaged candidates. In other words, they are only offering this opportunity to Black, Asian, mixed heritage or ethnic minority background, or from socially or economically disadvantaged backgrounds. And accordingly, they stand accused of banning white Britons from applying. So let's take a look at the law about this, because there is such a thing as positive action, which is where an organisation can take positive steps to address a underrepresentation within the workforce by taking measures that might on the face of it appear to be discriminatory. Now, under the Equality Act, any kind of discrimination is generally unlawful unless there's an exemption. Now, there are such exemptions for recruitment. They are found at section 159, and there is guidance to this effect. The guidance is quite clear. Now, this guidance says that this section permits an employer to take protected characteristics into consideration when deciding whom to recruit and promote, where people having the protected characteristic are at a disadvantage or are underrepresented. However, the second bit in yellow says this section does not allow employers to have a policy or practice of automatically treating people who share a protected characteristic more favourably than those who do not in these circumstances. In each case considered, it must be on its own merits. Any action taken must be a proportionate means of addressing such disadvantage and underrepresentation. And it gives some examples at the bottom here. It says it would not be unlawful to give preferential treatment to a candidate, provided the comparative merits of other candidates were also taken into consideration. An employer who offers a job to a woman on the basis that women are underrepresented in the company's workforce when there is a male candidate who is more qualified, this would be unlawful direct discrimination. And there is case law on this as well. In the case of Furlong and I think it's Cheshire Police Constabulary, Mr. Furlong complained because he felt that he was discriminated. And the tribunal said here, although the force had a legitimate aim to improve ethnic diversity in its force, the tribunal held that a blanket approach to positive action in recruitment was not reasonably necessary or a proportionate means of achieving that legitimate aim. And therefore, I would draw the conclusion that having a blanket policy which seeks to restrict applicants based on their background and ethnicity is on the face of it unlawful. And so turning to the comments of Chris Philp, Shadow Home Secretary, he describes it as racist and said it should be axed. He says, I understand the need to encourage applicants from a wide range of backgrounds, including underrepresented minorities, which is fine, which is absolutely correct, and I accept that completely. He goes on to say, but this is an overtly racist policy and should be immediately discontinued. It implies it's impossible for any white person to be deprived or deserving of assistance. And I, on the face of it, quite frankly, agree. I think policies like this, whilst positive action to encourage everybody to apply for these positions is absolutely fine and accepted, I would wholeheartedly support that. But excluding applicants from certain backgrounds, I think, is tantamount to discrimination. That is my view on the face of it from what I read here. I'll link the article below, form your own opinions, and let me know what you think. So as I said at the outset of the video, please do subscribe to the channel, like it, share it, make sure enough people see this video because any further down the line, and I may not be able to comment at all. So thank you for watching. Please do share it and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.